There is a place some of us go when the world becomes too bright, too loud, and too shallow. A place where the grief we were told to hide becomes poetry. Where sorrow isn't shameful, but sacred. That place is not always physical. Sometimes it's Black Island. Sometimes it's distorted guitar chords in a dimly lit room. Sometimes it's a trench coat worn like armor in a bus full of blank stares. We call it Goth. But what I see, and what many of us on this path see, is a ceremony, a living myth. To understand Goth, you have to go back, far beyond Hot Topic and Instagram aesthetics. Back to post-war Britain, back to punk. Back to a generation that had seen the collapse of empire, the decay of tradition, and the rise of a bleak industrial modernity. In the late 1970s, as punk screamed in rebellion, a quieter, darker voice began to whisper beneath the noise. Bands like Joy Division, Susie and the Banshees, and Bauhaus emerged. They were not angry, but they were haunted. They didn't want to destroy the system. They wanted to mourn what it had already killed, meaning, beauty, and innocence. This was the birth of post-punk. The aesthetic we now call goth draws from older roots, Victorian mourning traditions, romantic literature, the architecture of cathedrals, and the existential ache of poets like Byron, Shelley, and Poe. It's a lineage of the wounded mystic, the outsider artist, the sacred mourner. It's the black veil worn not to hide, but to reveal a truth too raw for polite society. The goth subculture isn't just a look. It's not fashion for fashion's sake. It's a language for people who never had the words. It's a temple built from silence, longing, death, and yes, beauty. Beauty in the honest mess of being human. You see, most people think darkness is something to get rid of, to overcome. But the goth doesn't run from it, they wear it. And in doing so, they speak something many of us spend our whole lives trying to say. This is what I feel like inside, and I won't lie about it anymore. That's not morbidity, that's integrity. In a society that demands happiness at all costs, to grieve publicly is rebellion. In a culture where fitting in is the price of peace, choosing to express your shadow is revolutionarily honest. The black clothes, the skulls, the sorrow, they're not signs of pathology, they're symbols of survival. What Freud might call sublimation, I call transformation. Every sad song, every torn fishnet, every tattoo of a raven or a weeping rose, it's someone turning their pain into art. When Jung spoke of archetypes, the shadow, the wounded healer, the mystic in exile, he was naming what the goth lives. Goth culture is a ritual space for wholeness. It doesn't reject pain, it sits with it. It listens. It dances with it at 3 a.m. and lights a candle for it by the window. We speak of a certain frequency, a sort of resonance. It's something subtle, but it's real. The goth doesn't just dress differently, they tune differently. They make their sorrow sing, and in doing so, they offer others permission to feel too. This is shadow work. I've sat with clients who couldn't cry until they heard of Bauhaus. I've seen people who never felt safe in their bodies until they're dressed like the person they always imagined themselves. The dark one, the real one. Not hiding and not pretending, but seen. That is shadow work. Goth gives people a place to go when there's nowhere else to take the aid. It lets the body speak what the mouth can't. And that's where healing starts. Not with denial, but with embodied honesty. Some people go to therapy, some people go to church. Some people go to the pit at Sisters of Mercy show and scream what they were never allowed to say. All these paths matter. The truth is, many goths are some of the most spiritually integrated people I've ever met. Not because they meditate or read Rumi or wear white robes, but because they refuse to perform a sanitized version of healing. They let their darkness live out loud. They're not covering it up, but carving beauty out of the places no one wanted to look. And no, not every person in black is doing deep shadow work. Not every aesthetic is alive, but when it's real, it's medicine. Not just for the wearer, but for the world around them. If you've ever been told you're too intense, too emotional, too broken, listen to me. You were never too much. You just felt too much in a world that taught numbness as virtue. Goth culture didn't make you sad. It gave you permission to stop pretending you weren't. You don't need to escape your shadow. You need to turn toward it. Dance with it, create with it, walk hand in hand through the dark until you realize you were never lost. You were just waiting for a home that didn't demand you hide who you are. To those in black, I see you. You who turned mourning into music, who made grief into fashion, who found community, not in shared optimism, but in shared truth. You are not a phase, you are not a problem. You are not the sickness of the world. You are its mirror. And sometimes mirrors are the hardest thing to look at, especially when they tell you the truth. So let's say it clearly. The Goth is not a symbol of decay. They are what happens when the soul refuses to be silent, when the inner child decides to scream back into the void and write a poem of the echo. This is your art, this is your truth, and this is your healing. Let no one, no system, no ideology, no false light ever take that from you. We walk through the dark, but we do not walk alone. Most people in the mainstream live under an invisible law. Only show what's acceptable. Package your pain, be positive, and be fine. The Goth subculture, as interpreted through this lens, this conversation, offers a radical alternative. Wholeness doesn't come from hiding the mess. It comes from honoring it creatively, truthfully, and symbolically. That doesn't mean everyone needs to wear black or listen to dark wave music, but it does mean you can express grief without apology. You can tell the world about your inner world. You can use art, ritual, and style as valid tools of healing, not just therapy and medicine. You can stop pretending to be okay when you're not, and still be loved, valuable, and awake. Maybe teachers from now on could allow students to feel and name their pain and not just suppress it to their grades. The parents might learn that their child's dark drawings or emotional songs are not a danger, but they're a gateway to connection. Anyone can learn that aesthetic expression is not vanity, it's psychic hygiene. So here's a final thought about the Goth subculture. Don't wait for a crisis to meet yourself. Let your sadness breathe. Let your rage paint. Let your silence become song. You don't need to become Goth, but you can learn from them how to be more honest, more whole, and more. Thank you all for watching. This has been a Shadow Coach's take on the Goth subculture. Hope you enjoyed that, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be bringing you more content on a regular basis.